Okay, I think we're a couple seconds from being live here. Always doing the waiting game, and it looks like we are probably live. So let's kick it off and get started here. So, welcome everybody. My name is Mark Ficciani. I'm the host of Friday Fuel Lessons in Leadership. My mission is to help startups accelerate by building high performance in house sales development teams. So, I've got a really exciting one today. This one's near and dear to my heart because I've spent a lot of time this past week thinking about my time as a teacher. And I was so blessed. I had a chance, for those of you who know me, or maybe those of you who don't know me that well, I was a teacher and coach at the Pingree School for 15 years. And I had an unbelievable time there, had the best mentors possible, just had a great experience. And then for 7+ years, I had the opportunity to work with a great family, the Conti family at the Conti Group and Tenna. And during my time, both situations prepared me unbelievably well for what was to come. I was so blessed to join two great organizations, completely different in scope, completely different in mission, but both professional and A+ all the way through. And what both of those experiences had in common was I felt by the end of my training period that I belonged and that I could be successful in the role. And guess what? I stayed at Penguin for 15 years. I was with the Contis between the Conti Group and Tenna for 7+ years. So both starts set me up for success. That said, I talked to a lot of companies. I talked to a lot of different startups. And what's interesting is a lot of people tell me similar stories. They put a ton of energy into designing programs. They love their culture. They've got great people. They've got a very thoughtful hiring process. But when it comes time for onboarding and training, I hear a lot of the same themes. Everybody's really busy. There's not enough to go around. And so onboarding and training becomes a bit of a scramble. They do their best to put a person in the position of success, but then, they're somewhat surprised when people leave in a couple months, or maybe a few months down the road, they didn't ramp and accelerate as quickly as they hoped. And they feel like they're missing the mark somewhere. So my whole goal with this training is actually I'm going to reflect on a couple experiences from education that I think taught me a lot in terms of successful starts, as well as my time working between the Conti Group and Tenna. And then I'm going to give you three basic principles of how to design your own winning onboarding and training. So this way, you've got a vision of how to go do it yourself. So let me jump in. I'm going to share my screen right now and we will dive in to taking a look at that. Go back to slide number 1. Actually, won't be slide number 1, but it'll be the kickoff question of the day, which is this: how do you win the onboarding game? That's what we're talking about today. So I really want to get into the specific aspect of how to create an onboarding and training process that helps new team members succeed. And so, of course, anytime throughout, uh, if you have questions, you got some comments, drop them in the chat. And then once I'm done with the formal training piece of this, I'd love to be able to answer any questions you have for whoever's ever watching here in real time. So that's the structure for today. Probably be about a half an hour all in. So here we go. Memory lane here. Look at that guy right next to the Washington Monument. There is Mr. Ficciani, aka Mr. F, with his 8th grade advisory back in 2015. This was an awesome group, and it was an awesome trip. So every year we would go to Washington D.C., usually in the fall as part of the 8th grade trip. So I had usually roughly about 13 students every year between 12 and 14 that I was not only their teacher, so I'd have them in the classroom for history, I was also their advisor. So think about homeroom in the morning, conference period in the afternoon, plus I had them in class. So I got to know these 13 really well. And we had a great time on this trip. It was a great way to build a relationship. and go further. And this was always a great shot. So whoever took this picture was sitting on the steps or standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, obviously Washington Monument in the back. So in 15 years, I learned a lot about certainly what great teaching and coaching looked like. I had awesome mentors, Ted Corvino and Carolyn Gibson, as I started in at the Short Hills campus, were just phenomenal, phenomenal mentors for a guy that had knew nothing about teaching. Because I came in from a career change with zero experience. I also got a chance occasionally to see what terrible teaching and coaching looked like. Those were few and far between, but after being around great mentors, after being around great peers, you also see what the other side looks like when you occasionally observe a class or see a practice or see somebody execute less than stellar. But here are six things that really stuck with me from the education experience that I think are really helpful pillars for me now as I brought that into my experience in building and onboarding and training teams. So here is a six pack of lessons from education. Number one, people don't learn in one-way conversations. Uh, if you don't engage somebody with whatever you're trying to share, good night, game over. Uh, you may think you're the most interesting man in the world. You're not. And so if you sit up there and drone and lecture in a one-way conversation, once in a while you hear people talking about covering the material, you're dead meat. Guarantee that no one retain anything and people are going to tune you out. Number two, people also never get it right the first time they learn something new. I don't know how many times I had what I thought was a dynamite lesson and there was engagement. Kids really got it. Again, the next day, we'd build on that topic. And I was amazed at the lack of retention. So over time, you realize, well, that's just normal because people don't really get it right the first time they learn it. Something new, particularly, you have repetition. So, in addition, it might take different approaches for the lesson to really stick. You might take one angle or one approach, but the more you vary your approach, different textures, different learning styles, it's going to sink in a much deeper way. Number four. So now switching to thinking about from that kind of pure teaching point to an environmental standpoint. This might be the most important of all the lessons. A great teacher will get you and create a comfortable environment for you while providing uncomfortable challenge. So dissecting that a little bit, you've got to have trust. If you want to build a great relationship, you've got to put the time in to do that. That said, once you do that, your job is to challenge people. Your job is to help people grow. And if they are comfortable, they will not grow. However, if you have an uncomfortable environment, you can still create an uncomfortable challenge. They're just not going to grow as much because they don't trust you. So you need both. Nothing shows you care like one-on-one time. So you'll have opportunities if you're a teacher, if you're leading a team in sales or some other capacity to communicate with the whole team. But nothing shows you care like one-on-one time. It's the conversations around the fringes, structured or unstructured, that let people know you really care. And without that one-on-one time, you're never really going to build a great relationship because you're never really going to know what makes that person tick and what they care about. Number six, first impressions are incredibly powerful. I know this from multiple experiences. First of all, thinking about my first day as a teacher, Ted Corvino and Carolyn Gibson, hot July day, dog days of summer, 2002, no air conditioning, spending hours with me, making me feel comfortable, learning my story, giving me a sense of the lay of the land at the school. I knew they cared right from day one. Kurt Conti, I come into the Conti group, and I'm kind of amazed and kind of humbled the more years that pass after this experience that incredibly busy man, incredibly versed in so much and had so little time because he's managing a huge organization. Uh, Created an onboarding for me that not only gave me a lot of one-on-one time with him, also put me in touch with several leaders of the respective content group companies in the first week. So right away, I felt like I belonged. So first impressions are incredibly powerful. And I realized as a teacher, pretty quickly, you make impressions on day one for better or worse. For the kids that impress you, they say the right things, they bring the energy, or maybe the ones that are a wise guy or say the wrong thing. Those are hard to undo. So I really thought about that, the importance of making sure that my first impressions, whether anytime I have the ability to have an impression on someone, to put as much energy as possible in making that a masterpiece because you get one chance to do it. So those are 6 lessons from education. Now, if you're going to build a successful onboarding and training, and then ultimately you want to elevate your team, you got to go 6 for 6. If you don't bat 6 for 6 on that list I just gave you, here's what's going to happen. Your team won't accelerate as fast as they can. They might make progress, but they will not progress as quickly. What does everybody want? They want the new hires to get up and running, and they want them to get out there and kill it. If you don't go 6 for 6, they're not going to do that. They're also going to wrestle with what I call unnecessary suffering more than needed. In a job, there is what's called necessary suffering. That's the price of excellence, of doing the hard work to become great. There's also unnecessary suffering. And I would point to the doubts, the anxiety. Did I join the right company? Is this the right place for me? Can I trust my boss? So if you don't go 6 for 6, you're going to create a lot more of that. And so much energy can be spent and wasted with that. So then what can happen? Well, what's the worst case scenario? You have someone great, you put a ton of time into getting them to your company in the door, you put time into training, but you miss some key steps here. They walk out the door before realizing their potential. And maybe a future leader of your company who could have had a massive impact leaves because you didn't necessarily have the right pieces in place to train them effectively and to make them feel comfortable. So you've got to go 6 for 6. So here's how I would create an onboarding and training plan to go 6 for 6. This model is going to help you build your team for the long haul because I don't care what position you're talking about. I would treat every new hire from entry level to C suite as a future leader of your company, someone you are making a major investment in. And any other perspective to me is crazy because I know it's so fundamental, but I'm going to say it anyway. Your people are your most important investment. So this model will help you build for the long haul. So let's think about winning the onboarding game. Here's 3 simple perspectives, 3 components to make sure that you win the onboarding game. And it comes down to that kind of philosophy that I've talked about beforehand. Maybe I'll call it a Stephen Covey type of philosophy. I want to begin with the end in mind. So I want to picture success. I want to understand at the end of training, what does great look like? And then what do I need to do as a leader to design and then deliver in training so they get there? So 3 lenses. Number 1, knowledge. This is the first piece. And in some ways, it's probably the easiest. And what's that going to pertain to? Needing to understand the industry, whether they come from the industry or not. They should have more depth of knowledge about the industry. And they should get the product and service and everything they need to know to be able to sell effectively. So the foundation question is, by the end of training, what do they need to know? And of course, as they get into live conversations, there are going to be nuances that develop. They're going to learn how to communicate these pieces better, but they need to know enough to have that foundation to be able to be conversant and have confidence in themselves. So here's a learning tip, putting the teacher hat on. Let's imagine that I've got a new hire and I want them to, let's imagine I'm designing something. I want them to read up on a particular topic pertaining to the industry or my company or service we have. What percent, if I just say, go read this, it could be an internal document, it could be something from the website, it could be some other resource. What percent on average do you think they will retain from that exercise or reading something independently? I'm going to pause here, take a dramatic pause, and take a sip of my coffee while you think about that. Okay, dramatic pause over. So what percent? I imagine you have a different idea here. So let me give it to you. It's about 10%. 10%. So that's pretty underwhelming, I imagine, right? Here's the punchline. There's two of them. People don't really learn things the first time they see them. And they're certainly not going to learn without engagement. So there needs to be repetition and there needs to be engagement and context for them to truly learn. So I'll get into some skill building pieces because obviously knowledge and skills hard to separate, but uh, I'll bring that shortly. But just assume people don't really learn it the first time. So one thing, if I put my old teacher hat on, is the following. I'm going to think about spiral learning. So what does that mean? It kind of means what it sounds like. Look at that graphic. You've all seen a spiral in some capacity. So the idea is I want to circle back to a key idea multiple times. And so it's not as though I need to exclusively spend all my time on one topic, make sure you know it inside and out before I go to topic number two. Spiral learning just means I can introduce a topic on some level, have some work around it. Then I might introduce a second topic the next day or in another time of the day, give an introduction. But then I'm going to circle back to the first topic at some point in the future. And I'm going to continue to do that over time. So this way, there's depth of knowledge that's created. So think about that. Let's imagine I'm running a construction tech company. And one important piece of knowledge about the industry is understanding construction equipment, uh, different types of equipment from large to small, right? From excavators to hand tools and everything in between. So there's a knowledge base around that. Another piece that's important for the industry is understanding construction personas. So, what's the difference in terms of job responsibilities and pain points between a foreman and mechanic, an equipment manager, a chief operating officer, chief financial officer, and an owner? All of them were really vital to the organization in different ways. They all have different jobs, they all have different pain points. So if I'm going to spiral here and create spiral learning, I might introduce some exercises and learning around construction equipment. Then I might move on to construction personas. Then I might go into different types of construction work, different verticals, and then I might come back to construction equipment. And then we're going to come back to construction personas. So the more you spiral back to prior knowledge, this creates depth. So that's something I would encourage you to do as you're thinking about building up knowledge acquisition around your industry and around your product or service. Number two, second leg of the tripod, skills. You've got to be able to develop skills if you want your team to be successful. And look, there are kind of two main buckets, sales and systems. You might want to throw in internal skills, communication, different aspects or different soft skills around how people relate to each other. But those would be the two main buckets that I think about in terms of having people successful in doing the job. So the piece is, I think about by the end of training, what do they need to be able to do well? What do I want to see? Where do I want to see a level of competence? Not mastery, because obviously that's going to come over time. What do I want them to be able to do well by the end of training? So then I'm going to design my trainings to provide some of the important elements and foundations to give them the experience they need. So here's an example I want to show you of a training that's going to capture some key elements. And I think in this, you're going to see some of that flavor of what I shared on the spiral learning that really has some important foundational concepts of how you teach skills. So let me stop sharing here, and I'm going to share a different document. In one moment here, I'm going to pull up. That is in my search. All right. So let me share. Hopefully you're seeing that training best practices. So Skill stage, adding context to knowledge. So look, as you build skills, you want to teach a skill in a way that requires engagement. And whenever possible, build on prior knowledge. Missing link, add emotion whenever you can. Why? Engagement builds greater confidence. Context gives the feel to play. And prior knowledge gives that deeper understanding. You put emotion in it, that's the secret sauce on top. So it's not just a bunch of stuff uh, when you put these pieces together. Otherwise, it's just facts. It just kind of goes in the back of the pile. So you do this well, you're going to see people build skills quicker. So here's an example of a training that I would give that I have given. So let's go back to this construction software company. Imagine I've got an SDR team and we've done some industry basics around construction specialties, equipment, construction points of contact. They know a little bit about basics of the app and the software my company has and differentiators. Now they need to do searches. And the idea is to learn how to use Zoom Info with the context of our company. So what do? I want to build in some elements to help them do it well. So what would I do first? First, I give them some prep slash preview. Maybe we've got a 10 o'clock start for our meeting. I'm going to give them something to do beforehand. Again, prior knowledge. I might have them watch a pre-recorded Zoom info video if that exists. I give them some questions if I can. Go along with the video. Again, increase engagement. If they read on their own, you're getting 10%. If I add an application, that's going to go up. So now I'm going to leave the coaching session. This might be the most important part. I'm going to add context. There's something in teaching called an anticipatory set. It's the most underrated, but the most important aspect of teaching and coaching, letting someone know why it matters. So here's what I'll do. I'll say, hey, look, we're doing a little training here on Zoom Info. This might be the most important skill that's going to make you successful here. The sooner you master Zoom Info to target our ideal customer profile, the quicker you're going to be booking enough demos to be on the top of the leaderboard. Boom. Now they know why it's important. Now they know why it's important. What do most people do? Okay, we're going to do some training on Zoom Info today, and you're going to learn the tech. Super boring, right? Tell them why it's important. Make sure they know that it is meaningful for them. Now I model it. So I've got a list, a spreadsheet of 200 companies I've shared with them in an Excel. I'll look up that first company on Zoom Info. Based on what they learned last week about our ideal customer, I'll give a grade to that company based on what I see. So I'll look at that. I'll say, what do you see? And I'll say, well, you know what? I'm going to give this a D, and I'll tell you why. I'll go through all the different points. Now we do scaffolding. We'll do a couple more together. We'll kind of talk out a couple where everybody kind of joins in and we share of how that's going. So one person might give, I might go last. One person gives the next company a C. Someone gives it a B minus. We talk through that. And then I share where I would give it the grade. So all of this, it builds on learnings from the prior week. Construction company work types, construction work, personas, ideal customer profile. Now, independent work. They have the foundation. Now let them go out and give them clear instructions. Hey, in the next 2 hours, go through the list. Go to as many as you can, hit the website, give a grade, and then jot down some quick notes. We're going to come back in 2 hours, and then we're going to go through a handful of your different companies that you found. Check for understanding, always important. Any questions? Great. Everybody's off and running. They get a couple hours. We come back. What do we do next? We debrief. If I have a group of 3, I might go through, hey, let's start with let's go through 5 of your examples. Give me an A+. Awesome. Give me one of your Bs. Okay, give me one of your Cs. Give me a couple of your Ds and Fs. This way, we get a chance to hear their rationale. I provide feedback on my own. Let everybody get a chance to do that. Now, synthesis. What did you learn? What was your biggest challenge? What other questions do you have for me that I can help clarify? You've got it all here. So ultimately, that is how I would design as many trainings as possible, because you're going to get significant depth when you do that. So when I come back to here, And now we're back to my PowerPoint. Um, you've got these elements that are going to make you successful. You do, if you can, give them a chance to prep, add context, share why it matters with the anticipatory set, show somebody how to do it with them together. Now let them do work independently. They need that alone time, debrief, and then reflect. To me, that builds really good context and really good foundations for what they need to do. That's how you teach something in a way that drives engagement and quick learning. So as you continue to build trainings in, add repetition, add context, add engagement, tell them why it's important, share where that's going to be. Make sure that they're not just reading things, that they are applying their skills and getting experience. So, and look, when training is over, right, whether your training period is 2 weeks or 2 months, probably going to be closer to the former than the latter. It doesn't mean there isn't value to continued skill development. Um, as I interview hundreds of people over my time, one of the most important questions people always say is, what kind of professional development do you have in place? Anybody decent wants to get better. They want to grow. They want to learn more about the product or the service, or they want to learn more about sales. So, of course, adding in different pieces that where you're training on a regular basis, like sales role play, so basic, so fundamental, and so important. That's going to help them continue to sharpen the sword and have them get better on a routine basis. So, training's over doesn't mean you stop training. Okay, here's my favorite piece. Third pillar of a successful onboarding: create confidence. Create confidence. It's the most important and the most missed component. So, there are three domains where it's vital to develop confidence. And this is the difference maker for the companies that do it well. So, first, I can do the job. So, skills. This comes from what we just talked about. Thoughtful design of training builds skills, builds knowledge, creates appropriate challenge. All that's going to come from that right curriculum that's going to push them and challenge them to build over the time of their training. So they can see themselves having success in the job now and only getting better in the future. A great training program does that. Number two, confidence in your leader. This is essential because let's call it like it is. Your experience in your job really largely comes down to the quality of your leader, the quality of your growth, the quality of your communication, the quality of your relationships. This is the most important person in your orbit. So, as a leader, you want to make sure that you are doing everything you can to create this confidence that, yes, as a new hire, I trust my boss. So there's a couple of different ways. The best way, it's one-on-one daily conversations. And I would do this as often as possible. Because that's going to do a couple of things. First of all, it shows that you care. It shows that you're a human being. I know that that's so fundamental that I shouldn't have to say it out loud, but if the absence of that actually shows something too. If my boss never takes the time one-on-one to get to know me, to if I'm on site to walk around the block and get a cup of coffee with me, or on a virtual to ask me about my day or my family, well, then the absence of that shows that they don't care. In addition, if it's only about group conversations, then really what happens? The absence of that makes me feel potentially like I'm just a number and that I'm replaceable. And yeah, you know what? I've worked for people that say things like, well, everybody's replaceable. Guess what? Those people in my time of working for the past 30 years, those are my least favorite people I ever worked for. And universally, those people were less, not only liked, but more importantly, those people were less respected than any other professionals because it was pretty clear that they didn't care. So, it's great to have metrics and KPIs and all the important components of hitting the numbers, but your boss doesn't care, then you're never going to really be that successful as an organization. The other thing, which I want to make sure, is that when it's not just about trust and rapport, by having daily conversations and or certainly at some point regular conversations one-on-one with someone on your team, it also provides a chance to give specific feedback, to answer specific questions where they're struggling, to show that, yeah, you know what, my boss gets it. They understand specifically what's happening in sales. They know the nuances of the business and they understand my specific challenges and their ability to give targeted feedback as opposed to general feedback that is plain vanilla is really important. Knowing that my boss really understands the business and really understands my challenges, that gives me great confidence that they can help me get better. So that's why it's important. I would aim for this to be a standard as much as you can in the first month. There's never a downside to continue to one-on-one. I know that every sales leader, every SDR manager I've ever seen is spread too thin. And they have reports and meetings and other aspects to get to, but there's never a downside to continue to one-on-one. And because you've done a great job of creating a comfortable environment of trust, now it's what I went to at the beginning. You can challenge people to grow more effectively, right? You've created a comfortable environment. Now you can challenge them to get better. You can accelerate their progress more quickly because they're going to grow most when they're right on that edge of where they're uncomfortable. They're certainly not drowning, but they're also not complacent either. And you have to keep people on that edge or they're not going to get better. So that's a major element of when you do a lot of one-on-one, it gives you the gift to be able to do that effectively. Last piece, confidence in the company. I love this place and I trust my decision to come. So I mentioned it earlier, how important it is in a first impression. How do you create that confidence? It's a couple ways. Leaders, taking the time to meet new hires. So of course, that's going to come down to your direct report. They should always be able to do that. But man, if I work for a company where I'm in a 100-person company that I know is big, CEO takes the time to meet me, either in person to come shake my hand, or if we're remote to hop on a virtual, that goes a long way. That goes a long way to me because it shows that on some level, they get it. They actually wanted to meet me and they actually are invested in me in some way. Another way where I think you can build tremendous confidence in the company is share the hero's journey of the company, right? Every company I've ever met has one. They're at a certain place. They've come from a certain place. They're going to a certain place. You got to create buy-in around that. And to me, the best companies create that ability where they come in and they're like, man, I thought this was a cool opportunity, but now that I'm here, I can't believe I'm part of this. This is awesome. I'm now part of this journey. So a great company will make sure that they weave that in effectively into their training. Last piece, so fundamental. Make time for non-work activities. Please build in some fun because of course, what does that create? Of course, does that have an explicit learning component? No, of course not. But does it create camaraderie? Does it create an experience? Does it create comfort and trust? 100%. Put something fun in there. If you don't build that in, if you don't have a meal together, what does that show? It shows the leadership is really absent-minded. They don't understand that, yeah, and you joining a company, it's a family, it's a community, and there's an element to that. So all those pieces are part of ways to help someone fall in love with your company. And look, I'm going to set the bar really high. I want onboarding to be a masterpiece. Day one should be memorable. I always joke around about it, but I'll challenge people to do it. There was a great movie back in the 1990s called Dead Poet Society. You might remember the late, great Robin Williams. And it's a New England prep school, 1950s, I believe, super elite, super stuffy, super buttoned up. And so you see all the different kids go through their classes, super boring, super dry, super everything is the opposite of what we talked about for engagement. One way teaching, dry, lecture, authoritarian. And then what happens? They go to English class. Mr. Keating, what does he do? He walks in, he whistles, and then he leaves the room and tells the kids to follow him. He uh, takes them out to show them something in the trophy case of former students and has an exercise there. Before they leave, he makes everybody stand on top of the desk, his desk, and take a look out over the class so they have a perspective of looking at the world differently. Is that going to make somebody stop and think? Is it going to resonate? You better believe it. So, look, I know that's a high bar, but that first day made an impression on those students. You have the opportunity. Go outside the box a little bit. Take a risk. Do something that's going to have people have a memorable experience. You do that on day one, that's going to be something that people remember forever. And so all these elements are part of creating a winning onboarding. And look, it's a powerful combination when you get a new hire that trusts their training, their boss, and fall in love with the company. You're going to have a first impression that's going to last. Because for better or worse, first impressions do stick. You do this right, people are committed for the long haul of the mission, as opposed to, hey, I just took a job. I know for me, having that incredible experience at the Pingree School with Ted Corvino and Carolyn Gibson, then at the Conti Group, ultimately with Kurt Conti, and then at Tenno with Austin Conti, those set me up for success. Those took me from the place of things you may never see on the outside, that incredible uncertainty about, am I making the right choice? Did I join the right place? You turn that from, I absolutely did make the right choice. I feel very empowered that these people trust me. And now, guess what? I'm going to be all in on my commitment. I was committed already. Now I'm 200% committed to go out and do great and serve these people and serve this community. That's what you want to create. So ultimately, that is the blueprint that I'm going to give you about how to create a winning onboarding. So a couple of pieces of recap. Uh, develop skills and knowledge through repetition and variety, making sure that growth is going to flourish under the best environments. Create trust, create rapport, create scenarios in which people are trusting of their leadership. And then you have the ability to have uncomfortable challenge. And ultimately, give people confidence in leadership and company from day one. You're going to create a lasting positive impression. Of course, training has to be thoughtful. You have to have skill progression, but really, this human element combined with a well thought out training is going to set people up for success. Um, it can't be all about handshakes and smiles. You have to have the nuts and bolts of a good, sound curriculum, but build the other piece in, and you have an incredible combination. So, before I go to the last piece, I'm actually going to pause here. I'm going to go look to see if anybody contributed in terms of questions, in terms of the comments. I'm going to go there now and see if anybody had some different pieces here. So let me take a quick look. I'm going to click the wrong button there. So let me see if I can access it from my mobile here, see if I can see any questions. And I don't see any commentary right now. So let me bring it back to the final slide and we'll wrap it up. So again, couple things. Obviously, looking ahead, I'm going to do these now in the cadence of every 2 weeks. I did that from January through April, then was away for a couple of days, and now I'm kind of back on schedule. So every couple of weeks, I'll do these on LinkedIn, and then I'll have the recap you can always catch on LinkedIn or YouTube. Uh, I send out a weekly newsletter, just my thoughts on startups, life, family, everything in between. So subscribe to the Make Your Mark newsletter if you enjoy that kind of if you enjoy that kind of thing. And then look, if this was intriguing today, if something resonated where you said, yeah, you know what? I think we probably could do a better job of onboarding and coaching our team. Maybe we've done well in this one area, but I think we can do better on the other end. Hit me on LinkedIn. I love to talk with you. And if you want to learn more, a couple things. Happy to send you this PowerPoint presentation to kind of give you that background on everything that I went through today. But I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear where you are as a company, what your growth plans are for 2025. And if it's a fit and there's an opportunity for me to help you accelerate your growth, I'd love nothing more than to give you the gift that I've given other B2B startups, that path to predictable, sustainable revenue growth with a great team and a great blueprint. So hit me on LinkedIn, we'll chat, and we'll see if there's a mutual fit for both of us. So that's it for today, everybody. I appreciate your time, and you have a great rest of your Friday.